Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys too. Coming up, a lady who is about family, and you're going to love this lady. Her name is Gail Borkosky. And she's written an intriguing book, in fact, 2 of them, under a certain sort of book series. Now, Annika. I don't know if anybody's ever, heard that name. It's a very original sounding name. But if you haven't, I'm going to introduce you to a wonderful little girl named Annika. And Gail is going to follow suit because she's written 2 books about Annika. Whoa, now this is really something. They're children's books, and we love children on People of Distinction. Most of my listeners have children. In fact, most of our human family, they're going to get married someday and have a child or 2, and we like to understand that beautiful child's mind because we were all there at one point. Yeah, we were all born babies, and then we became children. And it's, every once in a while, it's good to revisit that, even as adults. And Gail has done that. Annika and the Emperor Penguin. Whoa! And who is Annika? Annika is Gail's little granddaughter. Now, that's a beautiful thing. She was so inspired in 2 directions to write something, and she's been inspired by her own granddaughter so much that she said, all right, I'm going to write something. It's going to be about children. It's a children's book. And I'm going to have my granddaughter as the main character. That's a beautiful thing. Gail's going to tell us a little bit about that. And then, now there's another book, Annika and the Giant Giraffe. And we all love zoos and giant giraffes or small giraffes or whatever, and lions and tigers and bears, as long as they're in cages. And Annika and the Giant Giraffe is featuring her grandson. Now, how do you like that? This is family stuff here on People of Distinction, where we really believe in the human family. And the human family is just a whole bunch of nuclear families out there that get together and reformulate the love that they have in their nuclear families to give love to the human family. We live by that. That's our brand. Yeah, and Gail lives by that too, so we're going to welcome her on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And you can order these books, the Annika series, Annika and Emperor Penguin, as well as Annika and the Giant Giraffe at Amazon.com, and Gail might know other places where you can order the book as well, and she's free to tell us about it too. And I'll tell you this, she was brought to me by Author Reputation Press, which is one of the best in the publishing world. If you have a book that you want to move, Author Reputation Press can really help you, and they can help you out with a lot of other things that are book related too. So I want you to run to authorreputationpress.com and get involved. Welcome, Gail, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. It's really a pleasure to have you on today. How are you, Gail?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
My pleasure, and we're going to talk about it. In fact, we're going to talk about it your way. From the point of view of being an author of 2 wonderful children's books and being a grandmother too, having your granddaughter featured and your grandson as well. Tell us how this began. Now, you weren't always an author, and I love the way you introduce yourself to me. And I'm going to share this quickly with my listeners. Gail said, well, gee, Al, boy, you have a nationally syndicated show and everything like that, and I've looked you up online. I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know if I'm good enough for your show. And she is. This is a very intelligent lady. This is a lady who really believes in love. Now, anybody that believes in love and writes books for children with love and features her granddaughter and grandson because she loves the granddaughter and grandson, whoa, they're welcome on People of Distinction. So Now you know a little bit more about Gail, and she's going to express herself her way right now in the Spotlight interview. So go ahead, tell us how you came to write these books and how you were inspired to have your granddaughter and your grandson featured in these books, Gail.
Sure. First of all, I really don't consider myself an author. Technically, I am because I have 2 published books. I feel like I'm more of a storyteller. And this started when my granddaughter was born, and I felt like I wanted to leave her some kind of a legacy. And I thought, what better way than to write a story about her? Penguins has a little place in my heart. When Annika's mother was married, she had a little bit of a penguin theme to her wedding. Penguins will travel up to 65 miles to find a mate, and at the time her husband and herself were living 60 miles apart. And penguins also mate for life, so they kind of used that as an undertone when they got married. So that's how the Emperor Penguin came about.
That's really something. I doubt if my listeners knew. I certainly didn't. Penguins will travel up to 65 miles for a mate. Wow.
Yeah, yes. Quite a bit of research goes into my children's books. My daughter, who is a teacher in the public schools, said something to me that kind of stuck. She said, children learn how to read, and as they get older, they read to learn. Mm-hmm. So I like to put a lot of facts in my stories.
And we're going to explore some of those facts here, starting with one of the main facts, your granddaughter, Annika. That's actually her name.
Yes.
And it fits very well in a children's book as well. Now, tell us, from 2 points of view, tell us a little bit about your granddaughter, as a real granddaughter, and then how she fits in the character of Annika in the book as well.
It is definitely the same Annika. My granddaughter Annika is very adventurous and curious, as most children are, and she's kind and sympathetic, and a lot of those traits are in Annika in the story.
We like that. Now, give us a taste of Annika and the Emperor Penguin. What is that all about?
So this is based in the Antarctic. She is at the South Pole, and she is learning about the emperor penguins in school and wanted to see them in their natural habitat. So her parents took her on a cruise for her birthday, which is in December, with her best friend Grace. And they go out exploring, and they stumble across a young penguin who has fallen into a crevasse. And she's been separated from her family. So Grace and Annika vow to help get them back together. She encounters a lot of animals that live at the South Pole and some of the obstacles that they have to overcome, but they stay with Penny until they finally reunite.
That is adventurous, and it's something that has a lot of different characters here. You're talking about something that really is geared to children, and the children maybe who have read this book or been exposed to the book, what are some of the things that you really want them to experience from the book in really positive ways that might not just be the characters themselves, but creating character within those children, if you know what I mean? What are some of your objectives here with children?
I think my biggest message in this book is to be a friend. I always say the best way to find a friend is to be one. And Annika and Grace demonstrate this by reaching out to Penny to help and staying with her until their mission is accomplished. And they form a very strong bond and friendship because of it.
Well, that is so important, reaching out to a friend in need and staying there until mission is accomplished. That is great. And I'm thinking that maybe Annika, your granddaughter, in real life, as they say, is that sort of little girl as well. Is that right?
She is. Don't get me wrong. She is a typical 4-year-old right now, pushing her boundaries. Yeah. But she's a very sweet child, and she is very sympathetic. And she doesn't like when anyone is upset. She always reaches out to them to see if she can make them feel better.
Isn't that something? That's beautiful. And people, if you'd like it too, well, I want you to order this book, Annika and the Emperor Penguin, by our special guest, Gail Borkosky. And she wrote it not just because she wanted to write a child's book, a children's book, but she also wanted to have her granddaughter as the lead character in the book. And her granddaughter, just a nice, tender 4-year-old. And we love that in people of distinction. We love love and tenderness and all of those nice things. And we talk about it all. We'll talk about some of the not-so-positive things in our world every once in a while that we need to, that we can make positive through our efforts. And with Gail, boy, I'll tell you, it is a positive, wonderful experience with children's books. Annika and the Emperor Penguin on Amazon.com. And she has another book, too, Annika and the Giant Giraffe. Now, that's also featuring her grandson. And what's your grandson's name, Gail?
His name is Elliot.
Elliot. He's featured. Annika is still the main character. Tell us a little bit how your grandson maybe reacts to that giant giraffe. If he's one of the featured characters, tell us a little bit about that storyline.
So this story is still about kindness and helping others in need. It's the same message that carries through. Annika and her brother Elliot are in East Africa. Their father is there on assignment to photograph the big five in the wild. And Elliot and Annika go off on an adventure, and they find a tiny egg that has fallen from the nest. And the mother bird is frantically trying to find someone to help her get that egg back into the nest. But it's up so high in the tree that they need to go find someone who can reach it, and who better than the tallest animal in the world, which would be a giraffe. So on their adventure to seek out this giraffe, they encounter animals that live in Kenya and some of the interactions that they have with them. And then I guess I'm going to leave the ending up to our readers to find out if the egg makes it back into the nest in time.
Wow, look at that. This is really great with the imagination. And I'm going to make a quick reflection here. Imagination is the key to realization in many, many cases, people. Because if we look back at history, we know that there were things 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, things that were going on then that only the imagination could see into our 21st century and the internet and even the 20th century and jetcraft and TV, radio, all of that stuff. You know, we need imagination, and we usually do have them with inventors and maybe companies that have the imagination to put out different products, maybe services, that they're not quite sure if it's going to catch on to the public. But then when it catches on, everybody says, well, of course it had to. But behind the scenes, there are a lot of people that are working with their imagination. And imagination is one of the seeds, not only just of realization, but also of connection among human beings. And that's part of what Gail is doing in her Annika series. If you really look at it from a deep point of view, and we like to get deep sometimes on people of distinction, when we're talking about maybe giraffes, when we're talking about other sorts of animals, and we're talking about an emperor penguin, well, that's an animal too. Penguin, now it's an emperor. We're using our imaginations. We're drawing upon reality, things that, are real, that we see all the time, maybe not right in our neighborhood, but we can go to a book and see a picture of a giraffe. We can go online and see penguins and all of that. They exist. And we're putting them in a different sort of characteristic. We're putting them maybe in a human character. Get it, people? We are humanizing the nature around us. And you know what? that is bringing us back to times when human beings did that. It's called animism. And when they thought of nature as something very special, and boy, they made these natural characters come to life. We're doing the same thing in children's books, and it never left us. The imagination is so very powerful and so very needed, and it links us together. It makes us laugh. It makes humor happen. And as we do that, we're creating innocence again in our lives. And what's so wrong with innocence? We were all there. We've been there, done that in our human development. And it's always good to go back there because the real development of innocence is to develop love in our lives. And not just love of human beings, but particularly the way that Gail is putting it in her Annika series, love of animals too. Love of different terrains. Kenya, which is in Africa. Most of us will never get a chance to go there, although I've been there. We see a different culture now. And as we do, we're saying, I accept you. And maybe we can accept human beings in that culture even more through some of the animals in that culture as well. Now, I'm putting it in a deep sort of way, Gail, but you're a deep person. And is there a point to maybe what I'm saying? Do you relate a little bit to what I'm saying with the imagination, the terrain, the animals coming to life? And maybe we can use that to help our human family come to life a little bit more in love for each other and acceptance for each other and respect for each other's terrains and cultures and all of that stuff. Is that another thing that makes sense here with your Annika books?
Absolutely. Yes, acceptance, inclusion are how diverse everyone is and how interconnected we all are.
Absolutely. Diversity, very, very important, and inclusion as well. Inclusion makes diversity really, really work in our heart and soul. And that's the beautiful thing about Annika and the emperor penguin and Annika and the giant giraffe. It hits our soul. It really does. It hits our heart and soul. It makes us not only imagine, but it makes us feel. And feelings are so very, very important. So one more time, I invite you to order these books. Annika and the Emperor Penguin, also Annika and the Giant Giraffe, by our special spotlight guest here, Gail Borkosky. And she wrote it really for her granddaughter and her grandson. Her granddaughter being Annika and her grandson being Elliot. And they are such wonderful, wonderful children that they're featured in these wonderful books on Amazon. Last minute of the show, or last few minutes of the show, I want to take out with you talking anything else that you want to say about your books, and maybe even inspirationally, certain things that you want to say about your books, and how maybe the books can help to maybe create more diversity and love of inclusion of that diversity in our world. Yeah, deep stuff like that from the human point of view. Tell us a little bit more about your books from that point of view.
Oh boy. So I guess it's kindness. Just be kind to each other. Be helpful to one another when you see someone in need. If you see someone that's alone, include them in what you're doing. Sit with them at lunch. Strike up a conversation. Just be kind.
That's the message, people. Simply put, be kind. And children are a real root to that kindness, too, especially if they're your granddaughters and your grandson, like Gail. And again, order those books, Annika and the Emperor Penguin, Annika and the Giant Giraffe, by our special guest, Gail Borkosky, and they're available to you at Amazon.com. Thank you so much, Gail, for being my special guest on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And one more time, Gail was brought to us by Author Reputation Press. And if you have a book that you want to move, you can move it through authorreputationpress.com. Thank you so much, Gail. We wish you all the best with your book series and also with your life developments, especially with your granddaughter and your grandson. I'm sure that they'll be hearing this show and listening to the MP3, hearing it on my network and everything. And so say a hi to them from Al Cole as well. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Gail.
I will. Thank you. You were wonderful. You made me feel comfortable. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
My pleasure.